23rd of March, 11 days since the first case of coronavirus was confirmed here in Kenya. And we have all those developments, including
tonight, the spreading virus. Another case of COVID-19 as hundreds are traced.
The ministry has traced 646 persons who had come into close contact with the confirmed cases.
That the government will take the severest action against any individual who knowingly breach these laid down conventions and procedures.
The virus-positive priest bearing negative news. Also tonight, flying in from abroad and interstate quarantine. Travelers to stay at hotels and government institutions for 2 weeks. Locked down in Wuhan. Government gave them a promise of money, but was it a pledge for the cameras?
It was emotionally draining. We felt that our government had let us down.
And the plea of the old and vulnerable in these coronavirus pandemic times. And threat facing Kenya's crowded children's homes.
NTV Tonight with Mark Masai.
We're glad you've chosen NTV Tonight for your day's update. Flora Atieno is our sign language interpreter. Now to our top story tonight. And the number of cases confirmed to have tested positive for the coronavirus in Kenya has risen to 16. As the cases increase, the sternness of the government is being felt. President Uhuru Kenyatta has warned of severe action against anyone violating the regulations laid out by the Ministry of Health in a bid to prevent further spread of the dreaded virus. Setolale gives us an outlook of the situation 11 days after the first case was announced in the country.
The latest case to test positive for the COVID-19 virus is a Kenyan citizen who is a close contact with one of the 8 patients whose cases were confirmed yesterday by the government. The latest confirmed infection brings the total number of cases to 16. Authorities are tracing 646 persons who had come into contact with the confirmed cases, with 96 already discharged, having completed a 2-week quarantine program. 550 contacts are awaiting test results before being cleared.
All the patients, except one, who is at the coast, are still in stable condition and improving. 11 individuals are currently admitted at Bagathi Hospital awaiting test results.
The head of state has reiterated that stern action will be taken against those who violate the regulations announced by the Ministry of Health.
I want to once again and categorically reaffirm that the government will take the severest action against any individual who knowingly breach these laid down conventions and procedures and in turn put the rest of the population at risk.
The president also revealed that his administration will soon be introducing initiatives meant to sustain the private sector during the advanced stages of the pandemic. The 11 people admitted at the Mbagathi isolation unit include 3 patients who the government last week announced that are awaiting test results. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
He took an oath before God and man to be of service to humankind and help them attain enlightenment. But as it turns out, a Catholic priest who has tested positive for the coronavirus put this very flock in jeopardy in showing total disregard for directives to self-isolate upon returning from an international trip. Olive Burrows reports.
This disease is not a joke. If we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally.
But for Richard Onyango Odwor, a Catholic priest who hails from Siaya, repeated warnings by governments worldwide for self-quarantine, especially after travel abroad, were all one big joke.
One of the 8 people I mentioned yesterday was a priest who had traveled to Rome and had come to Kenya and is currently at Bagathi.
In fact, it's reported he even joked about it when he presided over a burial in Ambira on Saturday, March the 14th, upon his return from Rome, just a day after Kenya confirmed its first COVID-19 case.
This is one time when we are calling for serious citizen responsibility.
And yet, Father Richard Odwor went ahead to preside over a burial and gamble with the lives of his family and flock in the full knowledge that he had traveled from the new epicenter of the coronavirus.
It will be very difficult for the health officers to know everybody who was in that funeral. And I've just been briefed that there was a huge crowd, a crowd that attended that funeral.
Even the Pope hasn't purported to know it all and has subjected himself to self-isolation. The laughs Father Odwor elicited at the burial when he reportedly joked that the mourners had nothing to fear now ring hollow, a tasteless joke if ever there was one, considering he presided over a mass and it only stands to reason the Eucharist on Friday.
He proceeded to Utawala Catholic facility where he slept. The priest came home at Ambira. The priest went to Sega and he slept at a colleague's house. He also proceeded to Luak Convent, possibly to go and greet and say hi to the nuns there. And after that, he went to Nairobi.
And now those who crossed paths with him are at risk of contracting the coronavirus, and the hundreds who came into contact with them in a domino effect that could eventually lead to you. Don't be a COVIDiot, Kenya's new vocabulary. Listen to the experts and don't take unnecessary risks with your life and the sacred lives of others. Olive Barrows, NTV.
Well put, don't be a COVIDiot. Commuters in Nairobi and other areas in the country have condemned the move by public service vehicle operators to hike fares as they implemented the rule on the restricted number of passengers as a means to stop the spread of the coronavirus. On their part, the PSV operators feel the hike is fair given the circumstances, but this does not fare well with the passengers. A fair point from either side, of, as Vincent Odwor found out.
A day after the government urged Kenyans to remain at home as a measure to stop the spread of COVID-19, Nairobi CBD and bus stations witnessed a sizable number of people going on with business as usual. Majority of people were engaged in their activities without observing the 1.5-meter social distancing requirement to reduce the risk of contracting and spreading of the virus. A good number of public service vehicles in Nairobi observed the restricted number of passengers rule as stipulated by the Ministry of Health. The situation was the same in Eldoret, Migori and Kiambu, where 14-seater matatus carried a maximum of 8 passengers. But this came at a cost as the operators tried to make up for the cost that would have been catered for by the empty seats.
About 15, alafu napepa hiyo ngapi, napepa 1500. Kifika jioni gari nataka 1800. Itakuwa tumeumia sana. Inafaa tuangalie. Kama ni kufunga gasi, tufunge zote, watupe chakula na turudi kwa nyumba tukule.
Naongeza pesa ndio ifike ile kiwango. Kwa hivyo wananchi ndio wanaumia. Ndio, kama kitu kama hii ndawa kama hizi serikali inabaa kutununulia. Tuwe tukipea kiwata watu mikono naye.
Commuters are understandably unhappy.
Ilikuwa 700, saizi tunalipa 1200. So mimi ningeomba tu watu wanajisafisha mikono alafu wanafaa visuizi alafu wanalipishwa tu kawaida.
hii process imeleta shinda juu fare za gari kitambo tulikuwa tunalipa 800 basi hizi ni 1200.
Kwa sababu wanatetea wale ambao wameandikwa kazi. Wanasahau kuwa sisi watu wengi Nairobi hapa ni watu ambao wanategemea mkono yao. Unapokuja ndio unapata riski yako. Usipoamuka una riski.
And the health CS Mutai Kagwe terms the move by matatu operators as immoral and unfair.
Understand that the commuters they are carrying are not in the same position they were in prior to this. Some of them are not earning any money at the moment.
Meanwhile, all entertainment joints and churches remained closed. At Holy Family Basilica Catholic Church in Nairobi, all were denied access, not even for the usual lunchtime individual prayers in staying faithful to the government's decree. Vincent Odur, NTV.
Meanwhile, all passengers arriving in the country through JKIA have been placed under forced quarantine by the government. Passengers were today picked by NYS buses and transported to the Kenya School of Government, where they are to undergo a mandatory 14-day quarantine. NTV's Sharon Baranga was at the airport and followed their journey.
These passengers covered thousands of miles before arriving into the country with hopes of being reunited with their loved ones. But when they touched down, it wasn't the usual arrivals procedure. They were informed they were being taken for quarantine before they were allowed to interact with people in the country. They were brought to Boma Hotel in Nairobi, but a number of them said they could not afford the accommodation.
So now you don't have money. Then the parents, what do I do then? Yeah, we don't have money. The government cannot start without pockets. Yes. We don't have money. We are here, we don't have money.
They were bundled into the NYS buses where they also observed the social distancing rule. Their final destination was at the Kenya School of Government, where they were checked in for quarantine.
The government announced a raft of measures to be taken into consideration if the country is to curb the spread of coronavirus. The people who just landed into the country will be guests of the Kenya School of Government for the next 2 weeks, where they will be closely observed.
These are people who came into the country without a plan to spend money in a hotel. If your normal charges in a hotel room are 12,000 shillings, you should be charging no more than 50% of that or even 25% of that. This is business you didn't expect, and you are not going to get it.
These are among the last group of passengers who will be allowed into the country before the international travel ban comes into full effect on Wednesday, apart from cargo planes. Kenya Airways will now fly domestic routes as it moves to adhere to the international flights ban imposed by the government on Sunday. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
And as international flights into Kenya are set to be halted in just under 48 hours, let's check in with the situation of about 100 Kenyans who are stuck at the original epicenter of the outbreak, that is Wuhan. They say the last 3 months have been a living hell, as they've battled scarcity of the very basic of commodities. The government was meant to ease the burden by releasing 11.3 million shillings to be shared equally amongst them. But a month on, some say they have yet to receive that money and have to make do with food rations and, in some cases, nothing at all. Edmund Nyabola spoke to a contact in anonymity. He began by asking how life has been under lockdown.
Well, at first we were very worried about that part of being a foreigner, and the language barrier. So at first the biggest worry was if you get sick and you go to the hospital, how are you going to communicate with the doctors probably efficiently? We have followed the guidelines by remaining indoors indefinitely, and that has really solved that big worry of being a foreigner here in China. And also our institutions have come through for us. They have done actually everything for us so far.
You're just about 90 or so students living there. Were there any reported cases or scares or anything around the disease involving Kenyans living there?
No, there are none of us reported any symptoms because we actually adhere to the guidelines provided by the government strictly, and we also encourage each other in the group to remain vigilant to observe the rules. So we made sure that everybody followed the rules.
You, as students living there, also tried to appeal to government and other agencies to bring you back to the country, but the government insisted that you were better off staying in China. How did that make you feel, and what was your reaction when that decision was made?
It was an anxious moment. It was emotionally draining. We felt that our government had let us down, but over time we had to be contented with that decision.
China is reporting very reduced cases, if no cases at all, and at least some parts of the country are coming back to life and all of that. What is it like in Wuhan, which was the epicenter?
We are still under lockdown. It has not been lifted yet. It's still the way it was, so we are not able to get out of our institutions. Yeah, maybe you can order something online, but you're not allowed to get out of our institutions. And actually, even when you observe from the wards outside the roads, there's no movement.
If perhaps you needed supplies, foodstuff and things like that throughout this period, it's been a couple of months, how are you surviving? What were you eating? Where were you getting your supplies from?
Our institutions were sending rations, but not everybody. This was dependent on how aggressive the institution is. So some institutions provided, some people, those who are living outside the institutions, have had to buy for themselves. And actually, the problem is not even buying. Actually, the problem has been knowing where the supplies are because there was scarcity. So it depends from one university to the other. The program has been quite different.
The government has released some amounts of money for you. At first, it was some 1.3 million shillings from the national government, and I think the Emergency Response Committee also released some 10 million shillings. Have you received those monies?
They only sent our Kenya shillings 13,000, which is equivalent to 1,000 yuan, and they said that they cannot release all the money at once. And they said they'll be releasing it after 2 weeks. Actually, most of the students have not gotten the money up to now. They asked for details like on 6th of this month, and they have delayed the money, and they are not willing to release the money. So we are appealing to the government to follow this up for us on our behalf. It's really draining when, especially those living outside the schools, is really demanding. The cost of living is too high. And when they were a bit relieved when they heard about the funds, but now the embassy seems reluctant in releasing the money. Most of the students have not gotten. Just a portion have been given the 1 Kenya shillings 13 only, as opposed to the 100,000 Kenya shillings if you divide by the number of students.
Have you at least tried to reach out to the embassy to find out what's going on, why it's taking that long to send the money to you as students?
They said, yes, we have reached them. And they said that the problem is we delayed in sending our bank details, which is not correct and accurate. Most of us were very quick in responding. We sent, and when we asked who had not sent, everybody said they had sent. But even if some people delayed, those who had sent their details should have received the money immediately. Again, they chose to use the long method, which is using bank transaction. Well, we have an easy method, which is WeChat Pay, which is an equivalent of M-Pesa in China. They could have just sent just a one click, just as simple as using M-Pesa. They would have used that channel and sent immediately. But now they have taken a whole month to disburse a very small amount. So we are really not seeing goodness from their side.
Is the amount you have received, you say each, at least some of the students have received 13,000, the equivalent of 13,000 Kenya shillings each. Is that amount enough for you?
It is not enough because if you order something, or especially for those who are living outside or whose institutions are not bringing regular supplies. If you order something, you cannot order in small batches. You have to buy in lump sum, and the price of delivery is high, and also the cost of the goods is a bit high. It's not normal as the expenses are under normal circumstances. So that fund is not enough. Again, for the 58 days that have already passed, the government did not support us. So people have incurred costs in those 58 days. Why are they not considering that? Because that money should cushion everybody for all that period when they did not show up when we really needed them.
There were also, in conjunction with the Chinese embassy here in Kenya, some foodstuff that were to be distributed to the students over there. Did you receive those?
Yes, we received, and the package was we received 2 kgs of cooking unga, maize flour, and snacks. That is, we received some milk powder, we received coffee, we received peanuts. The most tangible thing was only peas and maize flour. The rest is just snacks, but we received them and we appreciate.
How long ago was that, and was it enough? Is it still there, at least what's left of it?
That was on 6th. We received them on 6th, 6th and 7th. We already finished it. We are smoking on the rations. They provide vegetables once a week for my case, but not for everybody.
What you're saying is there are Kenyan students out there who perhaps might not have something to eat, and that's been going on for some time.
It is possible. Yeah, I've seen people in the group saying they don't have.
Okay.
Or saying that whatever they have is not sufficient, and even they are not able to access it sometimes. Because the whole city is experiencing a shortage, has been experiencing a shortage, because even for us who are given rations, you have to order 3 days in advance. That's the biggest challenge. You don't just wake up and say you need this today. You have to make an order 3 days in advance, or at least a week in advance.
At this moment in time, what sort of appeal would you make to the Kenyan government? Would you still want to be evacuated and brought back to the country, or you want to stay there and just live through this thing?
I think we can, because the situation is coming back to normal. If they could just disburse the amount they had shared before, they could disburse the amount equal to all the students to caution them. Then I think we have seen the worst phase. We can be comfortable here, we can cushion ourselves, because we've been through this a long time. We've experienced anxiety until we are now, we have had to live with it. Let them push the embassy to disburse the funds. That will really help, rather than us moving up and down, because some of us are about to graduate. We are almost graduating. So instead of us coming, let them disburse the money, and we can just graduate this coming June or July and come home.
As someone who has experienced, to a greater level what this disease can do, what can you advise Kenyans now that we have confirmed cases here in the country?
I'm surprised that people are not they are still taking chances, and that they are competing with the government. Encourage people to stop socializing. Let people stop going to parties, clubs, at all. Just stay in your house. If your employer has allowed you not to go to work, please stay at home. This is not a time to go and look for other businesses or to enjoy the time. This is not a holiday. It's an emergency. Stay at home. This thing is real. It kills. So you might go out on your own, but when you come back, you come and infect your entire family and neighbors.
We appreciate your time, and we empathize with you, what you're going through at this moment in time, having to be on lockdown for that duration, as well as the challenges you're going through right now. And we just hope that this ends sooner rather than later.
Say hallelujah to that. We definitely hope that ends. This ends not just here, but around the world. And thanks to that peace, we hope to get some clarity from the ministries involved. And at this point, we'll take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll take you exclusively inside an isolation ward. Stay with us.
It feel good, Coca-Cola Sunday, we're all chasing taste. Let's just grab a bite and enjoy, drink a Coca-Cola every single day. So we feel forever be real, together stay free, whatever ends. No, we can't stop, we wanna taste the feeling. Nothing can ever bring us down. Taste the feeling.
Birthday party.
Birthday party. Birthday party. Birthday party. Are we not invited? We have gifts. Malaria.
Mommy, best.
Rat.
Oh, die.
Party.
Compared to laundry spray, Mortein Doom Power Guard kills disease-causing pests instantly. Mortein Doom Power Guard.
Female genital mutilation is one of the worst forms of gender-based violence that is meted on girls and women worldwide. According to UNICEF, more than 200 million girls and women alive today have been cut worldwide, and 9.3 million have undergone the cut in Kenya. Another 3 million girls are at risk of undergoing the cut every year. Therefore, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta has committed to end FGM in Kenya by the year 2022. Ending FGM is the responsibility of every Kenyan. Kukomesha ukeketaji ni jukumu langu, jukumu lako na jukumu letu. Pamoja tukomeshe ukeketaji kufikia mwaka wa 2022. This message is brought to you by the Anti-FGM Board in collaboration with UNICEF Kenya.
Protect yourself against coronavirus by using Amara antibacterial hand sanitizer that will effectively clean your hands and eliminate disease-causing virus while you're on the go. In line with government regulations against traders hiking the price of hand sanitizers, report any trader selling out of the below prices to 020-864-2330 or 020-864-2333.
Do your gums hurt?
Yeah.
Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile?
All that in one toothpaste?
Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums.
Ah, Colgate Herbal.
Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Nimekupatia leo tu. Kama hutalipa nafunga nyumba.
Whose car is that parked outside?
Your gari ni yangu.
What do you mean?
If you'll not have paid rent by the end of the week, at the end of the month, mnahama.
Kesho ukose. Tutatambua. Droga, get out.
Unajua kuna kama dharau fulani na umeanza. All of a sudden, toka, out you go. Wakairo hizi sisi ile siku atulikuwa tunambia you are fired na kupiga magoti hapa. Oh, you are Kairo sinifute. Kama 10,000 ni mkono. 200 si nitakunyonga.
Welcome home to Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Invest in Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Call us today on 0790-300-300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
Welcome back. And a lot has been said about isolation wards, especially in the coverage of this coronavirus outbreak. Well, if you have ever wondered what an isolation room for a COVID-19 patient looks like and the steps it would take to treat a patient, with exclusive footage, Anita Nkonge shows us just that.
Patients who think they have COVID-19 symptoms are required to call the hotline number *719#. If the doctor believes you have the virus, an ambulance would pick you up and take you to hospital. If you show mild symptoms, you would be sent home to self-isolate. However, if in need of admission, patients are split into 2 groups. Those in the general ward are put into a general ward isolation room.
So in the general ward is somebody who needs, for example, oxygen, has severe chest pain, but doesn't need a ventilator, doesn't need dialysis, doesn't need to be intubated, and can maintain their blood pressure. When you can't do that, that's the next step, and that's when we take them to ICU isolation. If you have very many patients with coronavirus, that's confirmed, they can be in an open ward, but as long as the beds are a certain distance apart, about 2 meters, mostly 1.5 meters to 2 meters apart. But these are patients who are confirmed to have coronavirus. Those who are not confirmed should be in rooms on their own while we're waiting the result, because we don't want them to get infected.
However, if the condition of a COVID-19 patient deteriorates, they would be brought here to the ICU isolation ward for further treatment.
It's called a negative pressure room.
The isolation rooms have negative pressurization spaces.
The importance of a negative pressure room is that the air doesn't mix between the two. So if a patient has a certain condition, it doesn't go out and infect the people that are outside or other patients that are there.
I have the mask.
Inside the first chamber, known as the negative isolation room, the nurse would first begin by checking off her list of required items before seeing the patient. The nurse would then get dressed. The headgear first, then the shoe covers. The eye shield and mask is a must. Then the gown. The hand gloves are strategically placed on top of the gown.
Patients who need intensive care unit need to be looked after by an intensive care unit nurse. And a nurse and a doctor has to wear such gear before they go in to see the patient. Now, not all patients need this. So these are patients who will need procedures. The nurse will be doing their blood pressures, cleaning them, taking out their respiratory secretions. So because she's going to be hands-on with the patient, she has to wear this to protect herself.
This is where a patient would be laying. The ICU room is fitted with several machines to support the patient, such as a ventilator machine which would help the patient breathe, a kidney dialysis machine in case the patient goes into renal shutdown, an intravenous machine for providing fluids, a monitor showing the patient's vitals, including heart rate and blood pressure. Once the nurse is done with attending to the patient, she would don off, which would mean discarding the clothing equipment and throwing it away. At this point, relatives or friends of the patient would not be allowed to enter the patient's room. Anita Nkonge, NTV.
Well, thanks to that story by Anita Nkonge and the Aga Khan Hospital for giving us exclusive footage. Hopefully that's all you will need to see of this, that is the isolation ward, and not have to see it in person. Now, the coronavirus has been proven to bear a much bigger threat to the elderly by virtue of the fact that they are prone to preconditions, of course, or predisposing risks such as low immunity and other illnesses. And with the virus now spreading in the country, many are concerned about the fate of the senior citizens. Ngina Kirori visited a home for the elderly to find out how caregivers are observing the laid-down guidelines.
Give to the community.
Until a few days ago, young volunteer caregivers would flock the Cheshire Home for the Elderly. That has now been temporarily suspended, at least until the threat of the coronavirus subsides. But there still are challenges around distancing and hygiene when dealing with the elderly.
Kariobangi unajua iko katikati ya vitongoji duni. Kwa hivyo hali ya usafi haiko shwari sana, na kama hakuna maji ya kutosha, hii pia inaweza ikasababisha hali ikuwe mbaya sana.
While every person is at risk of contracting the virus, most cases of coronavirus-related deaths around the world involve the elderly.
The elderly also suffer other conditions, and these underlying conditions make them susceptible to get severe disease, or make it possible for them to get severe disease from COVID-19. And these conditions are things like chronic heart conditions. Some of them have heart failure.
As more and more cases are reported, the risk of many leaving urban centers for the village increases, and therein lies another challenge.
Nimezeeka, nikiletewa ugonjwa kama ule tumesikia, tukuje tukamatwe ni ugonjwa huo, tutabana nini?
Mumboa's concern echoed by millions across the country.
As per the definition of an older person in Kenya, those who are between the age of 60 then to 100 years are 2.7 million, meaning that this is our national heritage. And we should be very much concerned that this sickness is actually coming to take away these people.
We, as older people, or people who articulate issues of older people, would like to say that probably not enough has been done to project the vulnerability of the older people.
Gena Kirori, NTV.
As the government continues to introduce measures to slow the spread of the virus and promote the best ways to guard against it, some employers may be reluctant to let their staff go just yet. Workers at the Export Processing Zone EPZ in Athi River are growing increasingly restless and angry at the company, with increasing concerns about coronavirus infections inside the factory. Rose Wangoi has that story.
Every day, hundreds of men and women converge at the Export Processing Zone EPZ in Athi River, Kajiado County. A directive to work from home as a way to cut back on congestion or enhance social distancing. The majority are casual laborers who get paid daily. Inside a typical EPZ garment factory, workers are grouped in several categories. They work in close proximity, touching the same services and sharing tools many times a day. Social distance is nearly impossible at the factory.
We are almost 6,000 inside here. When one person gets affected in this company, all of us, we are over.
The workers claim that even though the management has complied with the on-the-job safe requirements, such as ensuring that workers have masks, adequate gloves, and other supplies, they are still a worried lot.
We could be asking the companies if they are using the right mask, the N95 mask, because what they are using is just but cotton mask, which might not assist anything as of now.
Many of the workers are hoping for a shutdown here, but what keeps them going is living from paycheck to paycheck. Rozongoi, NTV.
We've just looked at the plight or the threats to the elderly. Another great danger is at the thousands of orphaned and vulnerable children who live in crowded children's homes and orphanages. Ruth Sarmoe visited one such home where adjustments have had to be made to avoid exposing the young ones, and now brings their appeal for support.
With over 850 children's homes in Kenya that have a population of 45,000 children countrywide, Mogra Children's Home is grappling with the effect of COVID-19 now that social gatherings have been reduced, forcing her to shut out well-wishers that highly contribute to their upkeep.
Tuliona ile njia ya kuizuia ni sisi kukaa hapa na kutoka nje. Sasa mashida yetu ni hakuna watu wanakuja. Na sisi hata sisi tuliogopa, tukasema hatuwezi kubarisha watu wakuje hapa kwa maana tujui ni kina nani wataleta hapa hiyo virus.
The children, oblivious of the tragedy that has befallen the world, play on. However, this time around, there's no going out to the bigger field. The facility's resources are stretched, and caregivers have left their families to reside at the home for these children's sake.
Lazima tukae ndani ndio tusaidie watoto kukaa ndani. Kuna watoto wadogo hata wa miezi mbili, miezi tatu hivyo, na watoto wale kiasi, wakubwa kiasi hivyo. Ni watoto wadogo wanahitaji malezi ya kila siku.
Social distancing here is a challenge.
It is very hard to maintain the social distancing in the institution, considering these are young kids who also might forget even the instruction they have been given. So for us, we are practicing all sanitizing ourselves and washing our hands and keeping the services clean.
The home, just like many others, need assistance at the time of admission.
Polisi wakipata mtoto mdogo ametupwa mahali, wanatuletea mtoto amepotea, wanaleta hapa. Tujui kama hata yeye ana virus, na sisi hatuna hiyo kiti ya kuangalia. Sasa tunaona hatari fulani kama mtoto wa kukuja, na mtoto tuwezi mkataa.
This facility was forced to drill a borehole to supplement the 3 days a week water rationing that puts them at an advantage over homes that do not have an alternative source of water.
Kukitokea hiyo kitu, hao watoto si watakufa.
The institution has been forced to isolate the children who are below 5 years old in their rooms to safeguard their health. Ruth Sarmoe, NTV.
Ruth Sarmoe's report on the young and vulnerable brings us to our next break. Business is up next. It'll include a coronavirus beatdown at the NSC and thousands of looming job losses.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Sensitivity is a short, sharp pain that people experience when they have something hot or cold getting to the nerve of the tooth, causing that discomfort. If the sensitivity is left alone, it may get worse. Dentists recommend Sensodyne to their patients. It's able to get inside the tooth and calm the nerve of the tooth down. And the proof's in the results. It works.
Beat germs with Jik. Kills 99.9% of germs on your kitchen surfaces, sponges, chopping boards, sink and fridge, and your bathroom taps, showerhead, basin and surfaces. Just Jik it. Look out for our new improved packaging in store. Just Jik it.
PesaLink is the cheapest way to send and receive money instantly into your bank account, anytime, anywhere. Use PesaLink today in 3 easy steps. Step 1. Select PesaLink on your bank app or USSD. Step 2. Select either send to phone or send to account. Step 3. Input the phone number or account number to send money to and confirm the transaction. PesaLink. Easy, affordable, instant.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. Panadol Extra, now with new Optizorb technology to fight multiple tough pains with 3 times more pain-relieving medicine in the first 30 minutes when you need it most. Seeing them support themselves makes any pain worth it. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
Ladies and gentlemen,
get ready, y'all. Get ready.
Ready, set, jump to the rhythm as hard as you can go. Keep steady, to the letter right, turn it up, we giving a show.
Hey.
Hey.
What'd I miss?
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
Let's have a look at the business news. The Nairobi Securities Exchange 20-share index closed Monday's trade at 1,958 points, falling below the 2,000 mark for the first time since the year 2000. Now, during Monday's trade, investor wealth at the exchange declined by 72.3 billion shillings compared to Friday's trade, as investors continue to take a beating from the adverse conditions in the market. Stock markets across the globe have been plunging as investors shy away from risky investments in the face of the spread of the coronavirus. To a bleak forecast, and the government has revised economic growth this year to 3.4% from 6.2%, pointing to the devastating impact that COVID-19 is having locally. The disease has put employers and employees the world over on edge as unknowns over the short-term future mount. Alex Mwangi gives us that report.
We are also further advising that employers utilize the various options as opposed to redundancies or layoffs.
It is a heartfelt plea to firms to maintain their employees in light of the drastic slowdown in trade activity that is affecting all sectors of the economy.
We are appealing to the government to also up its game, escalate it further, because as we speak now, this particular morning, employees who are paying, let's say, 100 shillings for transport have ended up paying almost 3-4 times. What does that mean? It means that it is impacting directly to the worker and you people.
Although the government is instituting measures to help enterprises to cope with the adverse effects of COVID-19, there are growing calls for it to ramp up the financial magnitude of its intervention.
We, on the other hand, as employers, also realize that we will need support from government, as we support government as well, to help businesses cope with the intention of protecting jobs. We do not want Kenyans to lose jobs unnecessarily. This means that we have to find some money to be able to manage payrolls, because there is a reduction in the outputs, in the level of operations, and already we are seeing a lot of stress in the key sectors that run this economy.
The main challenges that policymakers are facing in dealing with the spread of the coronavirus are the mounting number of unknowns, coupled with how rapidly economic activity is slowing down both locally and internationally.
Up to this minute, we are not able to assess the real extent of this challenge because we are on week 2, and the real extent of this problem will now be clearer in a month's time, reading from other experiences, from other jurisdictions. International Labour Organization has confirmed that this crisis is likely to lead to loss of over 25 million jobs by the year 2020, with a sudden loss of about US $3.4 trillion.
For now, what's certain is that Kenyans, like other citizens of the world, will have to radically adjust their lifestyles if COVID-19 is to be slayed.
It will call for sacrifice from a number of us, including pay cuts, including foregoing some benefits, so that we can resuscitate and mainstream back our economy.
Alex Mwangi, NTV.
In a commendable response to what's happening, the Central Bank of Kenya is firing from all barrels as it looks to prop the economy, taking a beating from the spread of the coronavirus. In its March 2020 Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the central bank slashed the policy rate by 1 percentage point to 7.25%, as well as slashing the cash reserve requirement for banks from 5.2% to 4.25%. The moves by the Apex Bank seek to incentivize lending by commercial banks, a move expected to ease access to credit by struggling businesses. Well, it remains to be seen, however, whether banks will extend this to the end borrower as economic conditions worsen. Meanwhile, the Law Society of Kenya is now proposing that the government lowers corporation tax for manufacturers of select supplies and small and medium-sized businesses as a measure to cushion the economy from the adverse effects of the coronavirus. In a letter addressed to the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani, the society is also urging the state to defer all installment taxes due in April 2020 to cushion businesses from cash flow constraints that would be faced as activity slows down. The society is also calling for the state to double the tax relief to 2,800 shillings per month, a move they say will help households meet day-to-day expenses. As we wrap up the business bulletin, let's have a look at the financials.
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
We can always talk about your account, online, whenever you like.
Register at your nearest branch for KCB Internet Banking today.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
Hair
heaviness and a burning inside. It could be heartburn.
Indigestion and heartburn? Eno gets to work in 6 seconds and works on the 6 symptoms of heartburn so you can keep living life non-stop. Eno, fight heartburn and indigestion fast.
Nyaje wa Kenya, hii ni public service announcement kuhusu coronavirus.
The Ministry of Health advises all returnees from abroad to self-quarantine for at least 14 days, whether they feel well or unwell.
Wash your hands regularly following the 8 steps of hand washing. Wet hands with warm water, apply a small amount of soap, rub palms together, rub fingers and thumbs and the bits in between, rub nails on palms, rub the back of each hand, rinse with clean running water, and dry thoroughly with a clean dry towel.
Furthermore, it is advisable to cover your mouth and nose adequately when sneezing or coughing and immediately dispose of the tissue in a dustbin. Please do not use handkerchiefs if you can avoid it. If disposable tissue is unavailable, cough into your elbow. Try and avoid close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing.
Before you share any coronavirus information on social media, please verify it with Ministry of Health to avoid panic and alarm among your fellow Kenyans.
Welcome back. The coast region remains on high alert after 2 cases from the region tested positive for COVID-19. Leaders are now proposing drastic measures in a bid to contain the spread of the virus. Kevin Mutai also reports that health officials are preparing to conduct thorough screening in Kilifi and Kwale counties.
A day after the government announced that 2 patients from Kwale and Kilifi counties tested positive for COVID-19, public health officials are in a rush against time in tracing and quarantining those who came into contact with them. Reports are also emerging that no less than 10 police officers from Mtwapa police station are currently in isolation after one of them came into contact with Kilifi Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi. Several leaders, as well as Saburi's aide, are also in isolation as health officials rush to contain the spread of the virus. Surveillance has also been enhanced at all points of entry. An Ethiopian Airlines flight landed in Mombasa, and it took several hours for passengers to be screened before being referred to a government facility for more observation. Leaders here are now calling for drastic measures.
Why did Wuhan beat the virus? Again, journalists report 0. Why? Why? It's very simple. A total shut down.
The county's inspectorate department received information that there was another individual who jetted back into the country and had disobeyed the mandatory 14 days of self-quarantine. The operation to arrest him was later called off on grounds that there was no public health officer at the moment. Now residents are calling for caution.
Ukimambiwa tukae kwa nyumba, nitabidi tufuate hiyo sheria. Juu hakuna namna nyingine ya kujikinga. Na hiyo ugonjwa haina tiba na vile kila mtu yajua.
Toka jana ambao tuliposikia habari ya kwamba naibu gavana wa Kilifi aliweza kutembea katika eneo hili na sahihi hofu imeingia mpaka dakika hii biashara imefungwa.
Despite the government's call for social distancing, residents however seem to be reluctant in instituting the measures, but the authorities have vowed to painfully enforce the regulations as the fight against the spread of the virus intensifies. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
And the viral effect is being felt in the sporting world, as we'll find out after the break. Stay with us.
Swaddling needs a blanket and helps your baby feel safe and secure as she adjusts to life outside the womb. Spread your baby's blanket out on a flat surface. Place your baby face up on the blanket. Their head should sit above the folded corner. Straighten your baby's arms, then take the sides of the blanket and wrap it over their arms and chest. Loosely twist the bottom of the blanket and tuck it underneath your baby. At this point, your baby is fully covered.
Kiss Kids, no rashes. Bye-bye rashes. Buy diapers. Choose Kiss Kids.
basic protective measures as guided by the World Health Organization. Clean hands frequently with soap and clean water. Cover nose and mouth when coughing and sneezing with a tissue or flexed elbow. Avoid close contact 1 meter or 3 feet with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms. If you have fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. Avoid raw or uncooked animal products. Help the world put an end to the spread of respiratory diseases by sharing this message with a friend. Message brought to you by Sour Herbal Family Bath Soap.
Protect yourself against coronavirus by using Amara antibacterial hand sanitizer that will effectively clean your hands and eliminate disease-causing virus while you're on the go.
Nyaje wa Kenya, hii ni public service announcement kuhusu coronavirus.
The Ministry of Health advises all returnees from abroad to self-quarantine for at least 14 days, whether they feel well or unwell.
Wash your hands regularly following the 8 steps of hand washing. Wet hands with warm water. Apply a small amount of soap. Rub palms together. Rub fingers and thumbs and the bits in between. Rub nails on palms. Rub the back of each hand. Rinse with clean running water and dry thoroughly with a clean dry towel.
Furthermore, it is advisable to cover your mouth and nose adequately when sneezing or coughing and immediately dispose of the tissue in a dustbin. Please do not use handkerchiefs if you can avoid it. If disposable tissue is unavailable, cough into your elbow. Try and avoid close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing.
Before you share any coronavirus information on social media, please verify it with Ministry of Health to avoid panic and alarm among your fellow Kenyans.
Molfix breathable surface developed with Airsoft technology is very soft and provides the best Molfix skincare.
I've found the best diaper for my baby's sensitive skin.
All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Molfix.
Nimekupatia leo tu. Kama hutalipa nafunga nyumba.
Whose car is that parked outside?
Hiyo gari ni yangu.
What do you mean?
If you not have paid rent by the end of the week, at the end of the month, mnahama.
Kesho ukose. Tutatambua.
Roger, get out.
Unajua kuna kama dharau fulani na umeanza. All of a sudden, toka out you go. Wakairo hizi sisi ile siku atilikuwa naambia you are fired na kupiga magoti hapa. Oh, you Wakairo usinifute. Kama 10,000 ni mkono. 200,000 si nitakunyonga.
Welcome home to Amani Rich, the place of peace. Invest in Amani Rich, the place of peace. Call us today on 0790 300 300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
NTV Sport in association with Mozartbet. SMS NTV to 29990.
Let's get to the sports. FIFA's disciplinary committee today granted Football Kenya Federation a 30-day extension to pay former Harambee Stars coach Adel Amrouche $1 million he was awarded in a case for wrongful termination by the Court of Arbitration for Sports. Warode Kiru takes a look at how the Amrouche debt came to be and what are the repercussions for not paying it.
Somebody made a mistake. I don't want to go at who made the mistake.
We are not responsible. My office was not responsible.
Current Football Kenya Federation President Nick Mwendo and immediate former FKF President Sam Nyamoya shifting blame. The bone of contention being the termination of the contract of former Harambee Stars coach Adel Amrouche that has left a bill of 108 million Kenya shillings. Amrouche was appointed Stars coach in 2013 by former FKF President Nyamoya. In August 2014, he was suspended by CAF for 1 year for unsporting-like behavior. But 6 months later, the CAF Appeals Board cleared him. While Amrush was suspended, Nyamoya hired Bobby Williamson as Harambee Stars head coach. Upon replacing Nyamoya as FKF boss in 2016, Nick Mwendwa fired Williamson and hired little-known Stanley Okumbi as head coach.
I was never in office when this happened.
After elections, when he won, the first thing I told him with the minister and the peers is that, please, what you do, there's a potential problem here, which is Amrush's problem.
Amrush took his case all the way to the Court of Arbitration for Sports and won 108 million shillings in compensation. Williamson, on his part, took his case to the Employment and Labour Relations Court in the country and was awarded 55 million shillings for wrongful termination. Therefore, the actions by Nyamoya and Mwendwa have resulted in the Federation having a debt of over 160 million shillings.
Former regime of Nyamoya fired a coach regularly. 2 courts have said that. I have led from the front in this issue. I have gone to court for 4 years to defend Kenya.
Nick Mwendwa should be personally be sued. He should pay Amrush from his pocket.
If FKF does not pay Amrush, then Harambee Stars will be banned from the 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Warote Kiru, NTV.
To a larger conversation on the global scene as uncertainty continues to hang over the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games due to the coronavirus, the National Olympic Committee of Kenya has said that they are following all the developments closely, with the life and welfare of Kenyan athletes being of utmost concern and priority right now. NOC says that it raised the fact that Kenyan athletes are unable to focus fully on their training and that their schedules have been grossly impacted in a televideo conference with International Olympic Committee. This as Canada became the first country to withdraw its team from the Tokyo Olympics, and Australia asked its athletes to prepare for Olympic Games in 2021 next year. Meanwhile, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe finally conceded that the COVID-19 pandemic might force a postponement, while IOC has said a final decision on Tokyo will be made in 4 weeks.
Committee President, IOC member.
Well, even as uncertainty looms over the Olympics, NTV Sport continues to profile athletes who are preparing for Olympics qualification. And tonight, the focus is on Mary Moraa. The Africa Under-20 400 meters champion has shifted to 800 meters this season, and she is eyeing an Olympic ticket as she seeks to follow in the footsteps of her role model, Hellen Obiri, who is a world champion in the 5,000 meters.
Kuna target nilikuwa nimeweka, hata kama niliachieve lakini si kuachieve venye nilikuwa nataka. This time around nataka ning'ang'ane ndio nione kama nitaachieve venye target yangu nimeweka mimi mwenyewe.
Sekunde 61 mzunguko wa kwanza. 61 seconds.
This season target yangu ni ile nikimbie 800 ili niweze kuqualify nayo kwenda Olympic. Nimeama kwa sababu 400 inakuanga tricky sana. Fatamoo kwangu starting inakuanga ngumu. Juu naweza inama vizuri nikimbie, ikifika 300 ama nikienda kumalizia ndio nguvu yangu inaanzia hapo kwenda mbele. Sometimes itafika wakati itakuwa nikikimbia yote 800 na 400.
Well, let's finally take stock of how the sporting world has been hit by the coronavirus in the past 24 hours. All football in Spain, including La Liga, has been put on hold indefinitely. Football will not resume until the Spanish government deems it safe to do so.
NTV Sport in association with Mozart Bet. SMS NTV to 29990.
Mozart Refund, lose one game, get your cash back. Make a decision. Terms and conditions apply.
And that's that for NTV Tonight. My name is Mark Masai, and thank you to Flora Atieno for the sign language interpretation and the team behind the scenes that you don't get to see, but put in a lot to make this a success. And of course, you for making it all the more worth it. Remember, even as you stay at home, do your bit. Please remain as vigilant as possible. And yes, sanitize, 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 as I'm about to do as I head out. Good night.